I'm Dami, and I worked in the esports industry as a 3D motion designer for 3 years. If you're thinking about pursuing a creative career in the esports industry, I may have some info that you'll find for. I suppose it makes sense to explain a little bit about my design background first. I've been messing around in 3D for about 10 years, dating back to my DeviantArt days, and in terms of traditional education, I never studied any 3D courses. I did graphic design in uni and college, and I only started to take 3D a bit more seriously toward the end of uni. After uni, I was doing freelance projects on and off for a while I looked for work. Eventually, I got a DM from Sam Matthews, the CEO and founder of Fnatic, asking if I was interested in doing some work there. Even though I was sought out, I did have to go through the traditional application process, and after a trial brief, I did get the job. I did have a couple of other offers at the same time, which is funny because in the year it took me to land the Fnatic job, I had no offers until they came in at the same time, literally within weeks of each other. I am skimming over a lot of my background here, but this is a video on the esports industry and not a Dami Law video. And before I get into this first part, I do have to preface this entire video by saying I can only relay my experiences at Fnatic and at best speculate and give best guesses to what was happening at other orgs, what other orgs might be like in the esports industry. The first thing I want to talk about is the workload. When I joined Fnatic, there was only me and one other 3D designer. The team did later grow to 3 of us, but that's still not a lot of people to handle the majority of the 3D work for an entire organization. I do need to warn you, if you're looking into that industry, you do need a love for your craft. You need to be able to wake up in the morning excited, or at the very least ready for a lot of work due very soon. You might get a project come in at Tuesday 4 PM and be due Thursday morning. And you just have to be ready for that and to be able to deliver on that kind of timeline consistently. That being said, it was a very rare day for me that a project would come in that would be boring. 9 times out of 10, I would say I was pushing my skills and learning more, which is easily my favorite thing about the job, was just making cool stuff and getting better. Something exciting is always happening. It could be like a big tournament or a new player or a roster, or even making in-game items for Halo. I loved the work I did in esports, but I would be lying if I told you it was a relaxing job. Before we move on to the juicy details like pay and benefits, I do want to quickly touch on the work culture. I can't speak for other orgs, but Fnatic does have quite a social work culture. A lot of organizations now are doing a few mandatory office days per week. You know, we had office parties, watch parties, we had team building activities and workshops. I don't know if this is commonplace, but it is something to bear in mind. There were people that worked remotely and could circumvent all of this, so if you're an introvert or you're not interested in all that social stuff, I'm sure there are positions that could accommodate. I'm going to be honest with you. If you are an in-house creative for an esports organization, you can and most likely will be paid more to be part of a dedicated studio. In an esports org, you have to realize that you are a much smaller part of the operation than you are in a studio. Don't get me wrong, I got a salary I was happy with great benefits such as them paying for courses to improve my skills, hardware for my PC, and private healthcare, which I used a ton for things like therapy without a waiting list. But a specialized design studio will almost always pay you more, as you're considerably more instrumental to the operation than you would be for an esports organization. Don't forget, there's always opportunity to make more as a freelancer working for yourself, but we can get into the details of that in another video. In regard to benefits, I also want to quickly mention that depending on your job role, you'll get different benefits, and not talking about ones that are attached to salary. For example, if you're a videographer, you'll obviously get the chance to travel abroad to Japan, Germany, Cologne, all these esports hubs to do your job and capture events. And that's obviously something I didn't get to do as a 3D motion designer, because why would you need to fly a 3D motion designer out? So that's something you need to keep in mind when you think about benefits. It's not just things like healthcare. It can also be, job travel and things like that. Now, at the beginning of this video, you might have noticed I said I worked in esports, not work. That's because I was unfortunately one of the many people affected by the numerous layoffs happening in the esports and gaming industry. Some of the most talented designers I know have been affected by these layoffs multiple times, and we're even seeing companies like Riot Games do sizable layoffs of extremely talented individuals. If you're set on getting into that industry, it is absolutely paramount that you keep this instability in mind and at least have some kind of backup plan. I worked on amazing projects, I had vast creative freedom for a lot of them, I had amazing workmates, and I really got to push and develop my 3D skills. However, whoever said if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life, clearly never worked in esports. It's work at the end of the day, and it's work that carries the possibility that your job may suddenly just not exist one day. And that's something you just have to bear in mind. Another thing I want to touch on is how to get into this industry. I was, of course, very fortunate to get scouted, if you will. However, you can only get scouted if you're making things, and that's the point I want to make. You need to make stuff. I did a daily 3D render for a year. I was making simulations, render tests, environment studies. You need to be doing what you do, and it needs to be put out there in the world, because if you're not putting things out there in the world, people can't see them. You don't need a lot of followers. You don't need the biggest social media presence. Hell, I think when I got that message from Sam Matthews, I had about 900 followers maybe on Twitter, which is nothing. You just need to make sure that your work is being put out. Make sure you have a portfolio, motion reel, a website. It needs to be easy for people to access your work. You don't want to make it a puzzle for people to get to your portfolio. Other than just keeping posted on websites like Hitmarker, word of mouth is huge. If you're a freelancer, people doing your marketing for you is the best tool that I have personally used as a freelancer. There's nothing better than a recommendation from another person. If this video was all helpful, I'd be very grateful if you would subscribe, leave a like, and if you have any questions, please leave them below in the comments and I'll do my very best to answer all of them when I can. Thank you very much and take care.